Hello, Brave Masters. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Brave Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jena Rodriguez, and I'm your business and brave strategist. And I just adore working with entrepreneurs and very much working with coaches and consultants to really master their game and monetize their business. So today we're going to talk to another friend of mine, Deborah Bishop, and we're going to just dive into, you can see her beautiful face, and dive into her story and her brave journey, and we just are going to share some wisdom and some nuggets with you. And so hopefully you'll take notes, and if you get anything from this show, please share it. Also, please comment and share with us what you got so that we can continue to put this out in the world and show up for you guys. So Deborah, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. It's just been so great to know you all these years, and I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you, Jena. I'm really, really happy and excited to be here. So let's dive in.
Yes, please. So please introduce yourself. Let everybody know what brilliance you bring to the world.
You mean you don't know? No kidding.
I know.
Yeah, I know. It's just like Google me. I was at a networking the other day, and I was like, yeah, I just have my name on my card. If you don't know who I am, just Google me. And I was like, okay. It was interesting. Anyway, I am Deborah Bishop. I am an inspirational performance artist and a speaker and a mentor and a best-selling author recently too, which was kind of interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I am an inner image authority has kind of been my platform for a while, because you will never outperform your own self-image. And that's really the basis of my work, is helping people to understand what they don't know, which is set on auto default. It's their automatic response, and it's really limiting them. It's so automatic. It's been going on for so long. It's just the way of life to them. And that's where the frustration point hits. I'm sure you have many conversations with your clients that you work with that, they run into these walls, and those walls hurt, and they just can't figure out why they're there. Right. That's kind of my backyard or my playground. That's the place that I like to play, helping people to, in a scientific way, rewire the neurons in their brain to actually support them, as opposed to having them move into resistance.
Yeah.
So, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, I love that. And I've always really loved this conversation that you bring to the world, because, and the fact that you call it like the self-image authority, and I think, is that what you said?
Inner image authority.
Inner image, thank you. Yes, same idea, but yeah, inner image authority. But then you mirror that with we'll never outdo our self-image, right? We'll never outperform our self-image, which I think is really, really interesting and pretty much like a buttoned-up conversation. But I would love to unbutton it a little bit and like explain more about how did you get into that, right? Into that conversation for yourself. And then, of course, now serving people with it. What's your story around that?
Absolutely. And right before we dive into that, I just want to talk to anybody who's like, I'm more about business than this. And I want to talk to the business listeners just for a second and reframe this. Your net worth will never outperform your self-worth. Yeah. So this is how this affects your business, okay? How I got into doing this, honestly, Jena, I call it my vocation. It's really nothing I ever aspired to or thought that I would be doing or dreamed about doing. It just has become the work I really feel I was called to do. Right. I started in the entertainment world. I stepped on the first stage of my life when I was 4, and have been stepping on them ever since. Being an artist, a creative, I am also a very spiritual person. I kind of put myself into these worlds where lack thinking and struggle and limitation were just part of the reality. Yeah. And so I grew up thinking, that everything was really hard and that nothing was going to come easy, or I just have to be really lucky. Like it wasn't about being talented. It was about being lucky. Just a lot of negative programming that went in that I didn't even realize. And being told a ton. Like, oh, you want to do that? You know, I want to be an actress. You want to do that? Oh, you got to have something to fall back on. You got to have something to fall back on.
Mm.
And so all of these beliefs and also, you know, some personal things that went on, bless my parents, love them dearly, but my childhood was not the easiest. There was a lot of things that kind of ended up kind of consuming me from the inside out, to where one day I found myself at a pretty young age, really, doing things I love to do, but having zero joy, like just, and that's a really terrifying place to be, because if you're doing what you love to do and you've got zero joy, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
So my journey started with a very personal quest. I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me.
Yeah, right.
Discover that there is nothing wrong with me. However, there was a lot, I hesitate to say it this way, but this is how it's coming up. There was a lot wrong with the way I was programmed.
Yeah.
And at the time, you know, there wasn't a coach. There weren't mentors like we have today. You know, there was therapists and psychiatrists. And, you know, I have seen both. Oh, we have a little
FaceTime. We have a visitor.
FaceTime. That was an affirmation of this conversation. So I thought I shut all that off, but I apologize. So that said, where was I? Now I got distracted by that. Therapists, I have seen both. I have seen psychiatrists and therapists in my life for very specific reasons, and many, many years ago. And I discovered really quickly that psychiatrists were really great for giving you medication. In my case, they gave me some Ativan, but they were quite happy, not quite maybe as happy as they are today, to prescribe the antidepressants. They're pretty happy to do that these days.
Yeah.
But that was as far as they would go. And therapists were really good at telling me what was wrong. Okay.
Right.
Then I was kind of left holding the bag, because now I knew what was wrong and I could sure get medicated to help handle it. But where do I go from there? So again, it just kept leading into this deeper dive and this deeper dive. And I started to study all the different healing arts modalities, all the alternative therapies, and met some amazing teachers and mentors. And it was kind of like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, Jena. I'm sure you journal.
I do.
Where you write something and then you go into the world and suddenly you experience it. Have you ever had that?
Oh yeah, I write. My mentor teaches me creation statements, so I create all the time, journaling, and then it shows up. So yeah.
That's what was happening for me, as I was I call it divine downloads. I was getting these divine downloads, and I would write about how I understood things to be, and then all of a sudden I'd end up at a workshop, or I'd end up at a lecture, or I'd end up in a healing circle or whatever, and they'd be talking about exactly what I wrote about. And I was very blessed to find individuals who were willing to take my ideas and actually try them out on me, because I couldn't do this for myself.
You're right.
I just didn't. I needed to be able to try this out. And slowly but surely, what I've discovered is, in changing my dynamics from the inside out and the way that I was showing up, and actually learning about who I was, because I didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
You know, from the minute we're born, we're like fed all of this stuff that we have no choice but to take on. And then we think that's us, and that's really not us.
It's really not.
Yeah, it's, you know, I slowly, and I say slowly because this was a slow process, I evolved into like the person you see before you now. And along the way, others have always migrated to me and asked advice or asked different things, or it just was this natural evolution of like, I started to teach and lead and people would show up. So I kept on doing it. And now it's just become this business.
Yeah.
And, it's going through a big pivot right now. But my art, my writing, my performance, my keynotes, everything revolves around this idea that we are creators, and, you know, we need to know who we are in order to understand what we are truly creating.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's where you and I connect so well. It's just, it's kind of like, you know, we spend our first part of our life piling on the stuff, and then we spend the next part of our life unfolding it and like peeling it back, and, you know, really trying to get back to our authentic self. And it's interesting that you brought up therapy and psychiatry, and I got it. They serve their people. They serve the people that are meant to be served for them. And but I found the same kind of brick wall for myself early on, and I just kept asking more questions. And I think, and if it's kind of like you find what works for you, but at the same time, it's like, what is the expansion of that answer? So for me, yeah, I got Prozac and I got antidepressants handed to me, and at one point I was like, this isn't working for me. This isn't, but I feel like there may be that message out there that that's the only answer. And if that's your answer for you, great, but like make sure that's the only choice you have, versus like looking at what else can I do to learn about myself, to not make self wrong, right? Or even the things that happen in our life wrong. But what is the message? What's the gift inside of it? And I guess I always I struggled very much so in my 20s trying to figure out this conversation, because I was handed what I knew, and like called, the therapy or the what have you, but it was all about blaming my circumstances and blaming my dad and my mom, and okay, yeah, they did the best they knew how, but how do I overcome? How do I come out of this? This isn't going to serve me long term. And so, yes, it's a quest, right? A personal quest. And although I'm a business coach and that's the vehicle I've chosen now, I still am very much focused on like mindset and personal development. And that's really important for the people that I work with, is that they are open to that conversation. Because if we're the victim of our circumstances, how can we grow a business? How can we grow our lives and expand? Yeah. And so I don't know if you have something else to add to that, but that's just what came up for me.
I love it. Right on track. And regarding the psychiatrist and therapist, just so everybody's really clear, I say that with all due respect. They play a role.
Correct.
Very important. And sometimes they are exactly what is needed. That said, as far as like the business side of it and the mindset and all of that, I add this little piece to it, because I too am very focused as they reprogram your brain and everything. Right. And it's very true. And mindset really is so, it's essential. It is that place that you're setting the stage for what's next. However, there's a little added element that I always talk about, and it's really the place that I teach from, or that I mentor from, or speak from. And that is this idea that how we feel about what we are thinking, what we are setting ourselves up for, how we feel about it literally governs how we will receive it. And to what level, and to whether or not we maintain it, or what's going to happen next. So it's really like, the mindset is like the car, and to me, the emotion is like the fuel. Yeah,
I do love that. I 100% agree with that. And it is this, it's the truism called "we create our experience, therefore the feeling," and we're the ones generating that. So therefore that's what you are going to receive. Right. So, I love this. I've always just really appreciated your perspective. And I know that you've been on this personal quest. It's not like, oh, I know this and now you just go teach someone. No, you're in it. You're in the process of discovering it for yourself. And so I would love to dig a little bit deeper into, I know you said you were pivoting right now, and I know there's some big changes, big things that have occurred, and you tell whatever you want to tell about that. But what is the kind of the bravest thing that you've really had to face, whether recently or just in the journey as a whole, that has you be where you are today?
Okay, well, there's several things along the way. There's one very recent, and then like a little over 4 months ago.
Right.
And that's the one I think that probably has the most relevance, in that, I really had this near-death experience that took place at very high speeds. As a passenger,
miles per hour.
Yeah, 75 miles per hour. As a passenger, so not even driving. Zero control over what was happening, period. Nothing to do but literally observe and have this whole thing flashing through my brain and my mind and my body. It was a multi-sensory experience. And it's still very crystal clear today, because it really was a moment where I thought I was not coming out of this. I was dead.
Yeah.
And the driver of the car, myself, we could have been in just totally different car. I believe in totally different dimensions. I really think that's where we were. And for me personally, I had this experience where we got run off the road. We got sucked into the woods. Thank goodness we ran over a lot of saplings because they actually did slow the car down to some degree. But I know we were doing 60 something by the time we hit. And we went into a ravine and came up and hit an embankment. And the embankment was all on my side. So the driver's side got no impact whatsoever. Passenger side got ripped apart. And I have not to this day looked at photos.
Yeah, wow. I don't think I'm
and the thing that happened for me going through that was, I can't say that it was fear. I can say, though, which is strange to say, but I can say it was incredibly personally painful, because somewhere in the realm of some of the profanity I was speaking, trying to figure out what was happening, because I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't figure out what was going on, because it all happened so fast, but the time itself is totally irrelevant at that point.
Yeah.
Is this gut core, bottom of my soul feeling just crept up. And all of a sudden there was this realization that I am not done yet. I have not done what I came here to do. And there was no hiding it. There was no escaping it. It was a chilling feeling. This was not going into
I have
the
goosebumps.
light. Yeah, this was not going into the light with grace and, oh, what a nice life. It was like horrific, because it hit me like, what have I done? I haven't done this. And that was a pretty significant moment. I remember very vividly the impact. I'm very lucky to be alive. I'm very lucky not to be paralyzed. I've had to deal with some injuries for sure, and I'm still coming back from all of it. And indeed have been kind of dropped out of sight for like 4 months because of it. In that awareness kind of came this other attunement, if you will, that's where my work is pivoting to, where my focus has shifted, and my focus of work, the methodology remains the same, the type or the ways I go about doing things kind of remains the same, because if it's not broken, why fix it, right? Mm-hmm. But the purpose or the reason or the point to it, I think, has gone deeper.
Yeah.
And for me, the big thing right now is this awareness that I'm really, really here to help people, whoever really wants to, and then that's the entrepreneurial audience, which has been my audience for a long time, but it's also the people who have kind of been there, done that. They're living their lives thinking they were doing everything in the right way, and somehow they've woken up feeling like nothing is what they thought it would be. Mm-hmm. They're in this anguish. That's what I'm talking to these days, is that level of pain. I want to help people get out of pain. And I mean literally the mental, physical, emotional pain that people are in, because they all relate. Your emotional pain will ultimately wreak havoc on your body. Mental pain wreaks havoc on your emotions. They're all connected. And I want to help people get out of pain so they can reignite their spark.
It's beautiful.
What I've noticed, and I'm sure you have, and maybe a lot of people have, is there's a dullness to people's eyes these days. Their light has dimmed substantially, and there's a real crisis happening. Like, we have huge amount of the population, we're going back to this again, on antidepressants.
It's true though.
Huge levels of population that are in some form of addiction. And just, their health is awful. Their marriages are awful. They're feeling lost. They're feeling lack. They're feeling disillusioned, and they're zoning out. And I love the virtual reach we have. I love this technology, because you and I can have this moment right now. We're not even in the same state. We don't have to be in the same country. Who knows? Somebody could be tuning in from the atmosphere somewhere. I love that.
Right.
However, I think it's a double-edged sword, because we start to use our screens like there's some form of connection, and the tribe, that human tribe, that compassion. I was talking to somebody very recently, and they had gone to this event that I would have loved to have known about, and they know I would have loved to have known about it, and they're a good friend, and they didn't say, hey, I'm going. They didn't text or call or just reach out. They just posted it on their Facebook. And at the end, I'm like, oh man, I would have loved to have known about it. I put it on Facebook, and I'm like, and
It doesn't show up all the time.
And also that's not how I connect with my friends. That's not how I use Facebook. It's not, I don't look at that as a relationship tool.
Yeah.
So we're running into some really interesting paradigms here where humanity and compassion and connection are being defined by I'm not even sure what.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, clearly I have a teenager, right, and a 21-year-old, and so it's clearly, I mean, infiltrating the younger generation, and it's interesting because I mean, you just brought that up, and so I'm thinking about this right now because it's like, I mean, they were born into it. They were born into that kind of world, and the phone, basically, when they were born, they got a phone. Or a device or something like that, which we didn't even have in our day, right? I sound so old, but
in our day, we used to have to walk 100 miles to school. No, kidding.
Like, it wasn't even that. Yeah, it's crazy. But it's this. There's different veins of conversation happening. And, and how do we bridge the gaps that are starting to occur? And not that there, like you said, there is a blessing inside of the technology. I mean, I would rather have video than phone, meaning I feel like one level closer than how we only had phone before, or we only had snail mail back in the day. But the sense of, are we depending on it? Is there a dependency, like a healthy relationship with it, or a not healthy relationship with it? Are we using it as a tool, or are we using it for good? And I think that's true for all of it, right? Everything we can take a look at everything we're doing, everything that's out in the world, everything that's available for us to choose from, and go, what are we choosing from? Like, where are we coming from about the choice? And clearly, I added video to this podcast on purpose because I felt like, okay, this is at least the next level of connection we can bring to the show, versus audio only. And, it serves both purposes in some way. And, but yet there's still a moment where you're like, okay, when can we get in person? Right. And actually, like, be with human beings, right, in the same room. But I think it's powerful that you're, number one, let's go back to the fact that you just shared your story, and you emailed me after that happened. Of course, I had no idea that happened to you, and you're like, I'm just now coming out of this, and I was just so grateful you are okay. So I don't diminish that. And you and I were talking right before we hit record on this, that like, what's coming from it? Like, and I asked you a question called, is it about self-care? Like, sometimes things happen because we need to stop and look. But I didn't know what kind of self-care. And yet now, like, what you're sharing is like, and I shared this too, is that I too am looking at the self-care. Like, am I actually taking care of who I am in the world? Not just like self-care, like physically and mentally and all that, but just like showing up as authentically who I am and what I really desire and what I want. And are we paying attention, because we're so numbed out by technology and social media, and and are we just on autopilot? Are we just running at 70 miles per hour into a ravine? Right. Our lives.
And, there you go. Good question. I haven't thought about it that way before.
Sorry, girl.
All these lovely perspectives.
Yeah.
And here's the deal: it's not just, are we numbed out because of social media and all that? Sure, our attention span is like down to, I don't know, 6 seconds. Somebody said somewhere along the way, we've improved it to 9 seconds. I don't know.
I don't know the number.
That's an improvement, but hey. However, I look at it, it's like I said, before this we were talking about, I feel like little bits and pieces have been coming for the last year and a half, kind of preparing me for this pivot. Wish I could have seen it, but anyway, and the factory is something that I created, the Factory Broadcast Network for Positive Media. And the factory itself, the reason for this is because I literally look at, from the minute we're born, we're placed on a conveyor belt, and all of this programming is put into us. All of our parents, bless them, they did the best they could, or the guardians, whoever, they're also a product of this. So they're doing things very unknowingly. They're just doing it the way that they know how to do it to the best of their ability for the most part. That's what they're doing. So good, bad, or indifferent, you can't really point a finger, because everybody's kind of operating under this guise. And so we are told what it is, what it isn't, what we're supposed to do, what we're not supposed to do. Then we have things happen that threaten our own primal survival self. And between the age of 0 and 6, we have no way of discerning ourselves as separate from anything that happens. We see ourselves as source of all things. It's just how our brain is set up so that we can do what we need to do. And so when we don't feel safe, which can be a multitude of things, including losing a teddy bear, we are making choices about what's wrong with us, that we don't feel safe, and how do we correct that? And that adds into the mix. And at some point, we're spat out at the end of that conveyor belt. Now we're a whole person. We're this young adult, and we're supposed to know everything that we need to know in order to go ahead and live this wonderful life, which is usually just a repetition of patterns and habits that have been passed down, and then ones we have adapted as part of our survival. So our level of distraction is not just everything going on around us. It's also the fact that for most of us, we don't really know who we are.
Yeah.
We have an idea, and some more than others. Some have been blessed with growing up with, mom and dad. Maybe we're into personal development, or maybe into something where they read these books, and that's awesome. But for a lot of us, it's all of these ideas, and we adapt them. We are habits and patterns personified. That is our life.
Right.
And we are not paying attention to where they're even coming from.
Right.
Like, who says you needed to be a lawyer? Who said you were supposed to be a doctor? Who said you have to have this type of business? Who said you have to do it this way? One of the probably most frightening aspects where my clients work with me can be for them when they have this awareness that they wake up eventually and realize, I did all this because I thought I was supposed to.
That's right. Scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying because they suddenly go, oh my gosh, I don't really even like what I'm doing.
I'm not the owner of my life right now.
Exactly.
The autopilot is, right?
Exactly, or the default settings. I call them default settings too. Yeah. It's like you're just on a default setting and it takes over, and then you find yourself and you go, wait a minute, what just happened? I don't like this, but oh well, different place, different name, same situation. I think everybody can relate to that. But all of that eventually filters into this place of pain.
Yeah.
And
emotional,
if we're lucky,
whatever it is.
Yeah. If we're lucky, maybe we have a life circumstance where we wake up and we start to realize that this is what's happening. I've had a few of those throughout my life, the most recent being the most recent.
The most recent, yes.
But if we're not so lucky, sometimes we don't get there until later in life, where maybe, I will never say it's too late. I will say, though, that there becomes a place where physically certain things just don't become possible anymore. There is a physical limitation. What that looks like in our future, I have no idea. Aging has changed tremendously.
True.
I don't believe in it. I don't believe in aging, so there you go. But still, I watch with my parents. I watch with where for their generation, their physical limitation has become a reality. And when people are not really in a place of their own authenticity, what I have witnessed is the astronomical and devastating pain that they are in at a time in life where I think they deserve to have peace, and they're suffering. That for me has become a very deep mission. I don't wish to have people suffer. So I say this, I want to help people get out of pain so that they can reignite their spark and actually discover their joy.
Yeah.
And you need to define joy, because joy is truly the fully expressed life, on purpose, profitable on every level, and passionately lived. That to me is the definition of joy. That's what I am here to help as many people as possible attain. Because I think that when that's going on, it becomes possible to actually create change. Create positive impact and change on this planet. And I have made a commitment to myself that whenever that time comes where I spontaneously combust into life and leave this dimension, that I will do so with the knowing that I did what I came here to do, and not a second before.
Yeah. I love what you are up to, and I'm sorry that it required a car accident.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that lightly because maybe it's exactly what you needed, and it just showed up in that form. But I think it is something to look at for all of us, and I share this vulnerably with everyone, is that I too am I've been running at 70 miles per hour in my own life, and I stopped myself just a few months ago, and I was like, I'm hiding. I'm not showing up fully like the way I want to show up. And I didn't realize I was hiding. Someone had to kind of like show me the light, and go, do you know that you're doing this? And I was like, huh, now I do, right? So sometimes it is the outside perspective. And that's obviously why I do the show, even, is just, yes, it's about being brave. Yes, it's about showing up in your life and finding your joy and all of those things. And to bring these conversations to people before it's per se too late. I don't, like you, I don't never totally buy into the, like, it's too late. Like you're, until it's over, it's not over, but you have to choose it. And it's like, there's, if you don't get self-aware enough to choose something newly, then, we could say things all day long here and nothing actually change in your life, the person watching, right? So thank you for being, number one, thank you, God, for saving you and bringing you back and to this world where you have a huge opportunity. Like this is, I had goosebumps a minute ago. Like, I think it is so on purpose for you to be available for the people you're meant to serve now and be in this pivot.
It's very scary for me. Really, if I got to admit, it's very scary for me because it's really demanding that it's like, you know what, just get completely naked and go for it. And it's like, oh,
that.
I signed up for that. Okay, I'm doing it. And I'm doing it. It's like my healing. I was working with my physiotherapist yesterday, and he was like, he said, don't quit. And I'm like, there's nothing. We'll walk through whatever fire I have to. I prefer not to have to go there, but if there is that, and I got to do that, I will do that, because from the minute that I was injured and realized I was going to survive and realized, thankfully, I wasn't paralyzed, my next statement was, I'm going to heal better than I was before. And that has been my mantra all the way along. And I literally refuse to listen to anybody who has anything else to say about it.
I love that. And you are right on. And it's just like what you said, we are creators. And so guess what you get to create? Exactly how you see it. And I think that's the message for everyone, is you are creating already. Like, this isn't something you got to go do. You're already doing it. And so just look outside, look at your life. And so for you, yes, like, don't let anyone else in. You are the creator of how this all turns out. So, congratulations.
I posted something on my Facebook page yesterday. I know we're probably running shy of time and stuff.
Yeah,
but,
you're good.
I know, I'm conscious. I'm sorry. I posted something, though, that said, how do we treat people when we see them struggling? Do we actually help them, or do we say things that maybe are well-meaning but are not supportive? And we maybe need to look at the energy we're holding for this planet at this point in time, because everything that everyone does matters. Every person watching this, you matter, and your impact matters. And this is where creating becomes very tricky, because people have such strong programs and they feel like it's their personality or it's their circumstance, or that's just how it is. This is the way it is for me. This is who I am. And I will tell you, if I can tell your listeners anything, I will tell them this, that anywhere where you feel like that's just how life is, or that's just who I am, or that's just how it goes, that's the big neon arrow pointing in the direction of the work that's there for you to do. And all I can say is pay attention to those big neon arrows.
Yeah.
Because life will show up and make you pay attention to those big neon arrows.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do it in your 90s.
Yeah.
Very different experience. You want to do it now. But if you're in your 90s, do it now.
Wherever you are, do it now. I love that. I was going to ask you a question, and I always kind of close with this question called, if this was your last interview, what would you say? I don't know if you agree, but that was pretty powerful right there. Like,
I agree.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree.
That's it.
Do it now.
Do it now. Do it now. I love that. And so before we close out, and as you and I mean, we've known each other a while, we could keep on talking. And I just love what you're up to. And like I said, the message you have to share right now is just super powerful. So don't be quiet, be vulnerable, be naked in the world. Right. But I want everyone listening to connect with you and connect with, your social media or your website or whatever. So can you share what that is?
Yes. I mean, you can go to deborahbishop.com. That is my website. There'll be all sorts of videos and all sorts of things there. My social media is pretty much all Facebook or LinkedIn. It's all Join Deborah Bishop. So it's pretty easy, except Twitter, I think, is Join Deborah. But you can find me there. But I'd love to actually give a gift to your audience, if you don't mind.
Please.
And that's a slightly different URL. It's Rev Deb Bishop. Rev is in Reverend Deb Bishop. I am a non-denominational minister and have been for a very long time. RevDebBishop.com will take you to a lovely gift, which is called Feel Better Now, which is a mindful practice. It's a 15-minute mindful practice. Just throw in your earbuds or your headphones or your big speaker or whatever you're going to listen to, and it's a 15-minute process. It will walk you through. It will help you release stress. I mean, it will get rid of it. Angst, fear, doubt, anger. It'll just put you back into your center and feeling very open to possibilities and great things in life. So I highly, highly recommend it. It's called Feel Better Now, and it means it. So that's Rev Deb Bishop @gmail.com.
We'll put, trust me, we'll put that
address. Yeah, RevDebBishop.com. There we go.
Yes, perfect. I love it. Thank you for the gift. I'm going to have to check it out myself. And, and it's just the walk we're on. And so thank you for being along my journey as well. And I'm so excited that we finally got to have this conversation for my community of Brave Masters. Yeah. So
I look forward to many more.
Yay. Yeah, me too, for sure. So thank you everyone for listening, watching, and engaging with us today. Please, like I said, if you loved the show, loved the conversation, and got something out of it, please let us know. We'll share it on YouTube and on Facebook, and then obviously also on iTunes. So would love your reviews. And she left such a powerful ending called "Do It Now," and I think that is what I will leave with you as well. And what I always say at the very end is, so let's go get our brave on. So do it now and get your brave on. And so until next time, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.